Welcome to South Korea. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the laws affecting the day-to-day life of students, teachers, and schools here. The first thing that I want to note is that student life in Korea is slightly different than those in other countries. For example, in Korea, there are no farewell dances or prom dances, spring flings. Students don't get to participate in sports and athletic meets between schools. Also, the student's life main emphasis is studying for the next level to get into a better school so that they can get into a good university. A little similar than other countries, but not with the same force. Okay, how did this happen? Basically, until 1953, Korea was occupied or at war. In 1953, a truce was signed, a new government was made, and the government made education available for everyone, which is awesome. Now, this government made the first law that we'll be looking at. This is called the Framework Act on Education. It has been amended several times and consists of three main parts. The first one is general provisions, which would be standard across most countries. It basically gives everyone the right to learn. Next, it gives equal opportunity for everyone to attain education. Up until 1953, education was not really existing in Korea and was also mainly reserved for elite class people. Next, compulsory education. Basically, it says if you turn 6, you are required by law to go to school. Your parents have to enroll you into a school, whether it be private, public, or anything else. And there are policies in place to ensure that these students do go to school and that people follow up on them not going to school. Okay, number 2 focuses on all the parties concerned: students, teachers, guardians, and other parties involved in schools. Basically, the Framework Act on Education gives a framework for the people here, their rights, responsibilities, encouraging development, how they should be conducting themselves overall. The last part is the promotion of education. Basically, as it states, it ensures at a national level that all students are served equally. This means equal education for male and female students. Special needs education is addressed. At my school, for example, our school gets extra subsidies from the government to take on more students with special needs. There's also a clause for education for gifted students. Also, the emphasis on physical health and the need for it in a healthy, well-rounded, educated student. And the last one is worth mentioning, not the last one overall, is the Assessing and Certification Act. Basically, assessing students, making sure they are competing well on a national level, and certification of teachers, making sure that they are also of a high quality standard. This will bring us to our second law. This relates to the first one up to a point. This is the School Meals Act. It was enforced on April 5th, 2011. All schools provide Korean students with at least one meal a day. And up until 2011, I think people had to pay for it. But from 2011, these meals have been made free. Ding, like Oprah. Anyway, the new policy relating to this law, however, is very exciting because now schools will serve one free meal, which is healthy and organic. It is similar to the framework law as it stipulates how the school should implement the meal plan. It stipulates the staff and how the policies should be working, and then also gives very strict guidelines for the nutrition teacher. Basically, the nutrition teacher, the person in charge of the kitchen or the meal plan of every school, has to, 1, ensure menu planning, inspecting the food, making sure it's of a good quality, management of the cafeteria and kitchen sanitation. They have to offer guidance on dietary lifestyles, management of kitchen staff, and all other matters related to the kitchen, so that all the students are healthy. An interesting part is that by this Meal Plan Act, the government requires side dishes as well in the meal for students. So now we have a student that goes to a public or private school. And in this public or private school, they have a well thought out framework, they have a special meal plan. So during the day, they're pretty much set. For the afternoon, they most likely go to a Hagwon Institute or Academy. They all mean the same thing. Many students go here to study the violin, learn to play the piano, learn another language like English or Mandarin, Taekwondo, or even art classes. The problem here is that some students go to multiple classes multiple times per week. So you'll have one student that goes to English 3 times a week, but that same student also goes to art class and Taekwondo to be an overachiever. So the government brought in an act to govern these institutes. This is Establishing Operating of Private Institutes and Extracurricular Lessons Act. Up until 2000, yes, 2000, Hagwons were illegal in South Korea. The Supreme Court ruled that this was unconstitutional, and since 2000, these kind of institutes sprung up all over Korea to address the needs of students. Now, basically the act entails the employment of people. They have a certain standard. Foreigner teachers that are hired need to have their visa sponsored by the company. There has to be a safe, hygienic environment for students to study, and also stipulating the funds from the government provided to these Hagwons. In 2010, parents petitioned the government for a curfew to be raised from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. However, the Supreme Court ruled that 10 p.m. is constitutional, meaning if it's 10 p.m., students need to go home. Most Hagwons do not adhere to this rule, however, and students still go home until 11 p.m. or later at night. So, we'll go on to our last one. This is called the Act on National Holidays. Really important one for both students and teachers. Normally seen as a time to rest, relax, and recharge, learning new things outside of the school curriculum. However, in Korea, that's not always the case. Students will go to more academies during these vacations, going for intensive programs with longer study hours. So, the national government decreed that there are red days. These red days, the employers need to give employees, or students in this case, the day off. However, some Hagwons, once again, do not adhere to this act. They will open their doors on Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, and national holidays. I have a personal friend who works in one of these Hagwons and cannot say I envy his situation. The Act on National Holidays is there to celebrate some of the Korean traditions, and also a fun time for students to spend with their families. However, until further notice, some students will still be going to Hagwons to study either English or math or science. Thank you for listening to this short clip on laws and how they affect the day-to-day life of students and teachers in South Korea. Bye-bye.